My hair's doing, it's like it's doing like a 2017 thing right now, and I don't know if it's working. What's up, everybody? D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another 15 things. It's not the yearly one. This one was also, it was pretty difficult to come up with the list, but we're going to be doing 15 things that need to happen, and we'll just call it the Godzilla series and the upcoming Godzilla Apple TV Plus show that many have dubbed Godzilla and the Titans. Now, don't be confused. That is a fan name. That is not the name of the show. That's a fan title that people have given it. I might just call the video 15 things that need to happen in Godzilla and the Titans, just simply because that's the name the fandom has just gone with based on the articles. That's not the name of the show, but I'll probably update it whenever we get an official name. I don't know. We'll see. So like I said, this is going to be my 15 things that need to happen. It's just going to kind of be a way to informally talk about the show and my thoughts on it, because I didn't really give my personal thoughts on the show and what I think should happen going into it. I did a news video talking about the show, breaking down why it's going to Apple TV and everything like that. I do have additional information to share with you guys. I'll probably cover this in a news video someday, maybe. I don't know if I'll remember, but if I do, I'll cover it. The actual reason it's going to Apple TV Plus in particular is because Apple TV Plus outbid every other streaming service that wanted the series, and that's why they got it. I do have confirmation on that, so that's why they got it. Again, like I said in that video, it just makes sense that Legendary wouldn't put it on HBO Max, even though they do still have a strong working relationship with Warner Bros. But yes, everybody was outbid by Apple TV Plus. Additionally, I have some budget info on the show C, and I just want to mention this because it'll give us some context going forward with the list. So the show C is one of Apple TV Plus's biggest series. It's a Game of Thrones styled, like, I think it's like a Vikings type of show or something. It stars Jason Momoa, who was in Game of Thrones, so I don't know what the deal there is, but it's a big budget, massive world show, and the budget info we have for that is that it costs $15 million an episode, so that's the same budget that Game of Thrones had for their final season. That's a really solid number. If we have a $15 million budget per episode for Godzilla, I don't know if they will. Maybe they'll do more, maybe they'll do less, who knows. But if we have $15 million an episode, and depending on how many episodes, I would hope that this is a limited series, like 6 to 8 episodes. I don't want it to be anything more than 12 episodes max, because that's typically when shows start to get into lots of filler episodes that just aren't great. In my opinion, 8 episodes is the perfect number for a series like this. If this is a 8 episodes with $15 million budget per episode, we can definitely see a lot of Godzilla going on in that show, because Shin Godzilla had a $15 million budget, and that was a feature-length film that was over 2 hours long, and we saw a lot of Godzilla in that movie, and it all looked really cool. So if that movie's budget was spread over the entire course of one film and Godzilla looked as good as he did on $15 million, imagine that $15 million going to potentially a 40 to 60 minute episode where Godzilla can have, like, I don't know, 5 minutes of screen time in an episode, and then he'll look fantastic. That would look really good. So that's just some context moving forward with this that I feel it was important to establish. All right, starting out the list, number 1, and again, this is a very informal list. I don't actually have any burning expectations or desires for this show. I'm pretty open to ideas. This is structured from the things I want the least going into the things I want the most. So once we get down to the bottom, that's stuff that I really want them to do. But starting out, Alexander Desplat as composer. He's not above composing for television. He's done shows before. And so having him return to do the soundtrack for this new Godzilla show, it would just create this nice smooth continuity between this and the 2014 film. It would keep it consistent, and it would I think it would just tie the whole feel of it together. Given that this is taking place right after 2014, I think that's a great way to go. Speaking of, I don't know why they said it after 2014. If it was up to me and I got to do it myself, this isn't on the list because obviously the show is not going in this direction, so I'm not going to say it as part of the list, but just a bonus. I would have set this show immediately after King of the Monsters in 2019, leading into Godzilla vs. Kong, where we have a lot of Godzilla doing a lot of cool stuff. Maybe they're saving that time gap for a future season. That could be really cool. We do know that Godzilla does the big cleanup after King of the Monsters, where he just goes around the world fighting monsters, and that could be really really cool to see. Anyways, number 2 on the list is Houston Brooks and potential Skull Island references. If we got him, we can use him, right? Houston Brooks is still around at this point in the timeline. He's younger at this point in the timeline. This is freshly after he's gone and recovered his son Aaron Brooks from Skull Island. So we might as well bring him back and see what he's up to. Also, this would lead into Godzilla King of the Monsters, showing that he's getting back involved with Monarch, getting back out of retirement, and that he's going to be moving forward with them going on. Also, it's just always cool to hear them reference Kong in a Godzilla movie or vice versa, so I think that could be really sweet to just have some Skull Island and Kong references without actually having to see Kong or Skull Island. Also, because this is a point when this stuff would be kind of, I don't know if Skull Island was disclosed to the public, but this is a point when it would be disclosed to the government, so Monarch would be referencing Skull Island at this point, and the public would be becoming a little more aware of what's going on that island and what that even is in the first place. Alright, number 3 is the start of Alan Jonah's involvement with Titan trafficking. We are told in Godzilla King of the Monsters that Alan Jonah is a notorious Titan trafficker and that he's been up to a lot of bad deeds. If you remember from the Monarch timeline that came out a long time ago, I can't even remember the specific events, but he was involved in some potential breaches of Monarch security where he was trying to steal intel. He was also trying to steal like Titan stuff from them, so like Titan DNA and whatnot. Let's see that. Let's see him starting that journey. Let's see him starting down that path, and let's see some of the Titans he has originally trafficked from. I would assume he does a lot of stealing from the Muto's corpses, and I don't know what else he was up to, but let's see it. That could be really cool. Dr. Chen and Dr. Ling, I want them back so bad, just to explore the mythology of the Monsterverse and have some subtle setup for Godzilla King of the Monsters. These are two characters that I really, really love. I think it's incredibly sad that they didn't show up in Godzilla vs. Kong, and now is the perfect chance to bring them back. Next up is number 5, Ren Serizawa. This is 10 years before Godzilla vs. Kong. Shun Ogori plays Ren Serizawa. If they want to bring him back, they definitely should. He would probably be playing somebody in their like late 20s or early 30s, depending on how old the character is. But yes, I would love to see Ren Serizawa, not only just because we need a moment of him and his father interacting on screen, in my opinion, but I just think if we have the character, we should use him. I think this could be a very interesting point to show the strained relationship with him and his father. Let's see his reaction to Godzilla, and let's see the way his father reacts to Godzilla compared to him. I think that would be a perfect place to start his downfall. And if we build up a relationship where like he really wants to make his dad proud, as it's implied in the novelization for Godzilla vs. Kong, and he just simply can't because Serizawa is so much more interested in Godzilla, that's a good place to start, and would also make him much more tragic and give a lot more weight to Godzilla vs. Kong. Number 6, let's get more angles of that 2014 battle and maybe even an extended fight. If it was up to me, episode 1 would start out during that. I don't know when exactly, but I think a cool way to do episode 1 would just be to start it right at the moment Godzilla makes landfall in San Francisco. The Mutos are already there, they're trying to turn this place into a nest, and if we got a full first episode exploring the actual event of 2014 from this new family's perspective, that could be super cool. If we got to see these moments that we recognize, like the atomic breath from a different angle, maybe even throw in some King of the Monsters stuff where they could, like, I don't know, run past Mark Russell or something. I think this could be a very interesting point to explore that 2014 battle from a brand new perspective. I would really, really like that. Number 7, I think this is very important. The aftermath of 2014 on a deep and personal level, showing the human damage, political fallout, and mistrust of others. This is enormous. This is where things on this list really get serious. Like, I really want this to happen. The aftermath of 2014 is something that I was really hoping King of the Monsters would expand upon, and it did a little bit. We got to see glimpses about what the public was thinking about this event, but because King of the Monsters is told from the perspective of Monarch, we never really get an outsider's perspective on what happened, and I would really like an outside perspective on what happened. I want to see that weight. I want to see the gravity of monsters exist and we don't know what to do about it, and the world has been torn down around these characters. Let's see that. Number 8, a dark and grim tone. Now, I'm not saying the show has to be depressing the whole time. There could be moments of humor for sure. That's not off the table. I just don't want something in line with Kong Skull Island, King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong. I want something tonally aligned with Godzilla 2014 or worse. I want it to be darker than 2014 if possible, but it doesn't have to stay that way the whole time. It could eventually evolve as we learn a little bit more about Monarch into something a little more lighthearted, as there's a little bit of hope, but I would like to start out with something as depressing as that 2012 Godzilla teaser trailer that really just made Godzilla seem like the apocalypse had come alive. Number 9, I don't know if this is going to be very controversial, but I want a lot of time spent with our human cast. Like, I want to get to know these people on a personal level. I want to get to see their struggles with what's happening, and I want it to be serious, grounded, and dramatic. If they do this as a serious drama, they have the proper writing to do this, this could be like the Breaking Bad of Godzilla, which would be a huge huge deal. I think that would give a lot of weight to Godzilla in the eyes of the rest of the world. I think something serious and dramatic and grounded, that would add a lot of weight to the franchise and give people a new perspective on it. And I'm not just talking about the fandom, I'm talking about general audiences. So that's what I would like to see. Also, I'll just throw in here, just because I mentioned Breaking Bad, it could be cool to see some reoccurring characters like the Brodies. I would not be opposed to the Brodies returning. Obviously, Joe Brody's dead, which is unfortunate because he would be the one that we would want to see return, but I am definitely not opposed to seeing the Brodies return. I'm actually all for that. I really like those characters, despite the fact that many don't, and I would be totally down for that. They're great actors, and so it could be really cool. Number 10, going kind of in line with the Brodies, I want this to have a very specific family dynamic. I want this to be differentiated from the previous casts. You know, people I've already seen in the fandom complaining about the fact that the plot description says that this is going to be following one family's journey. Okay, so people are burnt out on the family dynamic, so let's differentiate them from the previous cast. That's a good idea. I would like to see a functional family with some ties to Monarch, as that plot description implies. My feeling is that probably like the mother or father is going to be involved with Monarch, and this is going to be about the family coming to terms with the fact that one of the members knew about all this stuff and kept it a secret, and then through that we're going to explore Monarch and get a little deeper into it. Maybe this is, I don't know how deep into Monarch that person would be. This is just a guess based on that plot description. But I would like to dive into that dynamic of like family mistrust, but then coming together. I don't want them to split up. I'm kind of sick of divorced families in films, or like one parent is dead. I like to see families working as a team, and I think this is a good opportunity to show this family working as a team to get into what's going on with Monarch and uncover this Godzilla conspiracy. Joe Brody is a perfect character model for this. He was the most compelling protagonist we've seen in the MonsterVerse so far, so take him as a template, and then now let's apply that to a whole family. Not have them all be so irrational about it, but have them work together in a way that they're like, all right, we're gonna really get to the bottom of this and dig deep, and we're gonna find out what's going on. Number 11, I think this is hugely important because it will keep this consistent with the other MonsterVerse films at the time, like 2014 and King of the Monsters, and it will also add a real weight to this show. It'll make it seem like this truly is part of the MonsterVerse. I'm worried that this show is going to feel disconnected from the MonsterVerse as a whole, and that there's going to be this weird dynamic where it's like, yeah, this is a weird TV pocket, kind of like the Marvel shows that we have on like Netflix and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the way that stuff was like supposed to be canon, but it was so loose that they eventually were just like, it's not. And I guess Netflix, maybe, I don't know how that's going to work out after Spider-Man, but we'll see. Either way, my point is, I don't want this to exist in its own pocket universe. This is the MonsterVerse. It should be the MonsterVerse. It should be the MonsterVerse of the time, the 2014 MonsterVerse as it was. I want to see Serizawa and Dr. Graham, and I want them to be the heads of Monarch. They're alive. They should be present. They're what makes Monarch feel like Monarch. I honestly think that's a big reason why Godzilla vs. Kong feels like it's missing a huge presence, is because we don't even have Serizawa cameo. You know, he can't. He's dead. So at this point, it's like Monarch doesn't feel like Monarch. But this show is taking place at a point in the timeline where we can see Serizawa and Graham. I want to unpack their character dynamics. I want to see more of them together. Specifically, Dr. Graham I would like to see a lot more of, because she's a big missed opportunity. Maybe Graham could even reference her upcoming expedition to Antarctica, which would take place in 2016, where she would eventually go on to discover Ghidorah. That could be cool too. But I would like to see these two characters back and doing stuff. I don't want them to just be cameos in the background. I want them to eventually become, okay, now that probably our main cast is involved with Monarch, let's meet the Monarch crew and see Serizawa and Graham like that, as these leaders of this organization and also as characters. Number 12, this I think is also very important. New Titans, not Toho Monsters and not King of the Monsters Titans. I know, we all love Behemoth, we love Scylla, it's cool to see those guys, but here's the problem. This takes place at a point in the timeline when they're asleep. They can't just wake up and do stuff, specifically like Methuselah or Behemoth can't wake up and do stuff. They're in containment. Methuselah is like sleeping as a mountain. What this show needs is new Titans, not the ones from King of the Monsters, because they would not be awake yet. And no Toho Monsters. I think if we're gonna get a Toho monster, it should be saved for the big screen. I also just like the MonsterVerse developing monsters of its own. We don't need to rely on the past so heavily. Let's get some new stuff. I really like the King of the Monsters Titans. I really like the ones in Godzilla Dominion too. Let's get monsters like that, stuff we've never seen before. That's more interesting to me. It's more interesting to see that than Anguirus for the 100th time, even though I'd love to see Anguirus back at some point. Not now, you know, we don't need him. So new Titans, I'd like to see some Mutos, just because because they're who would be around at the moment. I'm wondering, after the events of Godzilla Aftershock, what happens once Muto Prime is dead? Do some of the other Mutos wake up? We know that at least one other Muto, the Queen Muto, is alive. She is in King of the Monsters, and it's kind of, I think the fandom kind of has come to the conclusion that she's probably what happens if a Muto doesn't evolve into a Muto Prime. She's like the ending evolution of a normal Muto. I think that's kind of what people have agreed upon, but I don't know if that's canon or not. Number 13, I mean, this is just, this is, do it. It would be really hard, as a hardcore Godzilla fan, it would be very annoying if they didn't do this. It's the 2014 Godzilla design. It would not be the King of the Monsters Godzilla design. It wouldn't even be a soft middle ground. It would be the 2014 Godzilla design. If this is taking place after San Francisco before Muto Prime, it would be the 2014 Godzilla. If it's taking place after Muto Prime, Godzilla would be kind of shattered up in the back, and he wouldn't look like Godzilla. He would look like a dinosaur with some spiky bits out of his back. I guess we don't totally see the damage Muto Prime does to his back, but I've always been under the impression that it like really destroyed his dorsal spines, and that's why he had to grow full new ones. So I don't know, I would really like to just see the Godzilla 2014 design, no tweaks, no changes, yellow eyes. I would like to see the 2014 design, that big long tail, get that back. Also, keep Godzilla like he was in that movie. You know, he's got to be a little weaker, a little slower. His atomic breath is not as powerful. I want to see the Godzilla from the 2014 movie. I do not want to see the Godzilla from King of the Monsters onward. They're the same monster, but they're two totally different eras. It's like almost in a way like Kong from 2017 and Kong from Godzilla vs. Kong. They're the same character, but at two totally different stages in their lives. Number 14, this is the most important thing of all, strict continuity. We know what's happening at this point in the timeline. Following the events of San Francisco, Godzilla Aftershock takes place. I would rather this show not retcon that out of existence because I rather like the extended canon being part of canon. So let's get something that either adapts Aftershock in the background or a full-on, let's see some of the Aftershock events, that'd be really cool. Or if they're just not going to touch that at all, I want them to stay far away from that moment in history, either before Aftershock or after Aftershock. I guess I don't entirely remember how long after 2014 Aftershock takes place, but it's during the year 2014. As far as keeping it in continuity with Godzilla King of the Monsters, that movie mentions that the 2014 attacks, plural, happened and there are memorials for them. Now, of course, I always took that as to reference Vegas, Hawaii, Japan, and of course San Francisco, but that could reference other small-scale attacks as well. So it does leave some room open, but specifically San Francisco is mentioned as being the worst of all, so we can't have anything on the scale of San Francisco. It would all have to be much smaller than that. And that's okay. I'd like to see some smaller scale Godzilla stuff going on. Monarch is currently under fire by the government and is hiding information from them, so there is room for some cover-ups to happen here. Godzilla, the Mutos, and Kong are the only Titans we know are confirmed to the government, so I don't know if any others have shown up and they're just hiding that, but we know that presumably the ones that are in the 17 and counting are not the ones involved in this show, right? Because I would assume that 17 and counting is referencing sleeping Titans who have been sleeping for a while and are currently being discovered. It's always possible that there could be a Titan introduced in the show that Godzilla puts to sleep, and then Monarch sets up a base around them. That could happen too. Serizawa has the direct quote, "Other creatures like the Mutos were awakened," so that implies that maybe there is room for others to exist, you know, some other smaller scale Titans to have woken up and done some stuff that Godzilla had to fight off, just as long as they're not attacking the public on a level of San Francisco. Sam Coleman also mentions that Godzilla was only missing for 5 years for those who don't know where to look, meaning that Monarch is well aware of his movements, so that's okay. Monarch knows where Godzilla's at. The thing is, I don't see a lot of room for Godzilla to do stuff outside of like maybe pop up on an island and fight some monsters on an island. That's okay, I'm cool with that, but I don't want him in a city in this show. Godzilla needs to stay away from the mainland, and I also am worried, like this comes to number 15, I don't just want Godzilla to be swimming around the whole show or sleeping. If you're gonna make a Godzilla show in the MonsterVerse, let's use Godzilla when appropriate, but to the best of our abilities. I also don't want to see Godzilla in an action scene once an episode. I think Godzilla could totally show up in the season premiere, sprinkled a couple times throughout the show doing kind of really minor stuff, and then a big event in the finale. That's okay with me. I don't know how others feel about that, but that's how I would structure the show, just to keep it in line with continuity and everything else. But also, it's just like if we're gonna do a Godzilla show, let's do Godzilla. Let's show him off. Let's do some Godzilla stuff. I was a little worried before I found out that the budget of C is $15 million an episode, that this was just gonna be a show without Godzilla, and that was just gonna be a disaster in the eyes of the fandom. The fandom only wants Godzilla, it seems, which is disappointing. You guys need to expand your palettes, but the fandom in many ways only wants to see Godzilla, and if this show just didn't deliver on Godzilla, even if I loved it, if it was the best piece of human drama ever written in the Godzilla franchise, I don't know if it would ever live down that stigmatization of the one without Godzilla. and I think it would just drive people nuts. And I also just personally, as a YouTuber who does this, I don't want to read those comments. That would suck. So let's please get Godzilla doing some stuff. Spare me from the comments, guys. I don't want to read them. All right, and that should do it for this one, guys. That's 15 things that I think should happen in the new upcoming Godzilla show. What are you guys' thoughts? What do you want to happen in the show? I don't know. I have a feeling that a lot of my feelings are not going to translate to other people's feelings. I think they're going to be very different. Thank you to all my patrons who support me on Patreon. You guys are the best. It goes a really, really long way towards keeping videos like this possible and supporting the channel in general. By supporting the Patreon using the link in the description below, you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. So please check it out. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.